First off, I just want to say thank you. We appreciate you doing this and
Yeah, appreciate
working with our time. So I know that you work at, is it the Southwest Research Institute?
That's correct.
And you work in planetary science, right?
That's correct.
Could you just kind of tell us in general, like what you do for a living, what your job is now?
So I sort of have two roles. Because I have two backgrounds. I have degrees in science and I also have one degree in engineering. So I try to simulate atmospheres on other planets like Mars. So I try to simulate those atmospheres, understand how those atmospheres work, and at the same time, I'm developing instruments that I hope to fly to Mars one day to measure the atmospheres. So my average day, there are not that many average days, but my days sort of oscillate between days where I sit in front of a computer trying to work on code and getting a model to run and analyze the results. And other days, like today, this is the first time I've been sitting in my office all day because I've been down in the lab because we've got an instrument that's far enough along that it's assembled and we're starting to test it and take data with it. So I do a mix of sitting at a computer programming and standing around in the lab trying to get things to work. Actually, let me be clear. All my jobs are about trying to get things to work because they never work right the first time. But some of it is on a computer, some of it is physical.
Awesome. A lot of trial and error, it seems like.
That's how it always is.
Perfect. Dominic,
Yeah. What made you choose that path?
So I was always interested in space since I was a kid. I just became obsessed with space from watching movies and then reading about it constantly. I originally thought I was going to do astronomy, like pure astronomy, study stars, that kind of stuff. And then when I was in college, in undergrad, I did a project on astronomy. I enjoyed it, but I also wasn't like crazy about it. And I happened to take a summer school right after college, this program that was on planetary science, and then that's when I discovered planetary science is really awesome. I love it.
Okay.
However, when I figured that out, I didn't know what I was doing, and because I had already graduated undergrad, I hadn't gotten into grad school, and so I hadn't gotten into astronomy grad school. I had already applied to a master's program in engineering on a whim because I was just mostly like, I don't come. My family are not immigrants because I'm Puerto Rican, and Puerto Ricans have been U.S. citizens for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But we sort of had a little immigrant mentality in that, like, I had to do practical things and make sure I had a job and like I wouldn't starve, right? So when I couldn't figure out what science I wanted to do, I had applied to an engineering program as a backup, because you can always get a job as an engineer, right?
Yeah.
That was my dad's attitude. He was an engineer too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had already gotten into a aeronautics engineering program. So I went and finished it and did it, even though I had finally figured out what I wanted to do planetary science. I was figured, like, let me at least go get the 2-year master's. It doesn't hurt. It did not hurt. I was correct. And that's how I got the engineering experience. And then that's how I started deciding to blend the two together. So it wasn't like it was a bit of a master plan because I always wanted to study space, but it also wasn't a master plan. Like a lot of random circumstance came along. So
that's really
Awesome.
cool. You're like the best of both worlds there.
yeah, I
Like
got lucky with
scientist
that.
and engineer.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Oh, so
And I will say real quick, when I went to get my PhD, I thought I'm going to be the only guy like this. No one will be like that at all. 4 of my classmates have the same background.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's actually depending on the type of science you want to do, it's actually very useful to have an engineering background and vice versa. So
Good place to start.
yeah.
That makes sense. Was there someone like specific in your life that I guess pushed you or inspired you to pursue engineering or aerospace initially?
No. My parents pushed me to get degrees, to get an education. The deal was I could do whatever I wanted with my life after I got a college degree. Again, because they had that sort of like viewpoint that like you got to get this minimum education to have a chance to function in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my mom in particular had never had a college degree, and I think she felt like it held her back from doing things she wanted to do. So she wanted to be sure to have a degree. But beyond that, no one pushed me into specific areas. It was more that like I just found this stuff interesting and opportunities came along.
Okay. Awesome.
So now that you've been now, do you feel the same now as you first started your career?
I apologize. You broke up during your question. Could you
I
ask
could.
it
Yeah,
again?
yeah. So do you feel the same way now as you did when you first started?
Do they feel the same way about what now?
Your career as you did when you
Kind of
started.
like, I guess, the emotional connection towards it.
Oh yeah. This is like the classic cop out question, but yes and no. I am still very excited to do what I do, and I feel blessed that I get to do it, and they pay me to do this. Right? It is definitely a privilege to be able to make my career studying science and exploring the solar system, because not everybody gets to do that, and not everybody gets a chance to do that. Right? If I'd been born in, I don't know, Paraguay, I never would have got the chance to do this. So I totally love that. However, like all things, there's negatives, and I mostly find um, I have to constantly be looking for my own funding. I don't have a permanent guaranteed job, and that does get stressful at times. I'm in a good place right now, but a couple of years ago it was actually quite stressful. So that's the part of the career I made a choice of not trying to become a professor and instead of working for an institute. And part of that choice meant I wouldn't have a guaranteed salary. And there are days I wonder if I made the right decision there. There are other days where I know for sure I did. So, yeah.
Okay.
Sweet.
What do you think is one misconception that other people have, either about engineering or planetary science?
I think one of the misconceptions is that you have to be like me, which is like I always wanted to study space. I have many friends in this career who are very successful who didn't even start thinking about doing this until like after college. I think there's more than one pathway. I have a friend who works for JPL. He's one of the guys who drives the rovers around. He like helps program and plan how the rovers on Mars drive. And he has a degree in art and got into the whole thing by accident, and yet he loves it now. But he was a graphic artist before that, and he got involved because he's in learning graphic arts. He learned about um, digital media stuff, and then they hired him to like analyze images because he had the skills. So it was like a backwards way of getting into it. So that's the one thing I sometimes worry about is that too many people think like, oh, it's too late. I can never do this kind of stuff because I wasn't like one of those 12-year-olds who was obsessed about Star Trek or something. That's all not true. Like there's a lot of ways to get into this field, and that's actually what makes it cool because we meet people from all sorts of backgrounds.
Definitely. So, what is the most challenging part of the job at now, would you think?
Um, the most
I
challenging
guess you
part
could.
is winning the funding to keep doing the job. That's always the most challenging part. I've gotten good at it, but it never gets easy, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and but it's also, there's a positive to that, which is part of winning funding to do your job is that you have to sit down and you have to be able to explain to someone else why what you want to do is actually of value. And it's challenging, and it's not always successful doing that, but it's a good exercise to do, right? Because at the end of the day, I work I work off of taxpayer money, so I should be able to justify what I do to somebody else. But that's the part that like takes away from the fun part sometimes is writing all the proposals and going through all the budget nonsense and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Right.
What advice would you have for STEM, or I'm a mechanical engineering major, so I guess engineering majors going through university right now?
Um, Really, it's again boring advice that I remember getting and not entirely listening to, but like make sure like you really understand the fundamentals. If you're taking an intro to mechanical engineering class, it's not just about getting a good grade out of it. It's about really understanding the fundamentals of that because if you get a good foundation, everything is easier later. When the problems get harder, you can always fall back to the fundamentals. The engineers I see doing best are the ones who it's not because they know some high specialty thing. Oh, I know how to do this particular part because I've done it 50 times. It's more because they know the fundamentals. They know the basic physics at hand, and they can sit down and figure everything out as they go. That's you know my freshman year, I remember, was tough because it was college and there was meeting new people and parties and all sorts of crap and lots of distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I wish I had spent a little more time making sure. I mean, I got past. I figured out how to pass the classes and get the grades, but I wish, looking back, I had a deeper understanding sometime of some of those fundamental physics that then keep popping up the rest of my career. And I use my example, but there's also, I have a colleague that I work with. He's really good, and he's really good because he's got all the basics down of engineering, and so then when he finds a new problem that's difficult, he has a good starting point to work from.
Okay.
Because then it also gives you confidence. And let's be honest, everything in life, it's easier to do things, and you're more likely to succeed if you go into it with confidence, right? That's true in sports. That's true in science. It's true basically in anything, right? You want to meet a significant other, you better have confidence you can talk to them. It's all about that confidence. Understanding the fundamentals helps give you that confidence. Then you're not scared to tackle a problem.
Awesome.
Sweet. And to kind of venture your career, kind of a personal question is, what is your favorite planet?
What is my favorite planet? It's technically not a planet, but my favorite place is Titan. It's a moon of Saturn.
Yep.
And what I love about it is that it, at first glance you look at it and it's nothing like Earth, but when you start studying it more, you figure out, like, weirdly, it's a lot like Earth. Like, the atmosphere is about the same thickness as Earth. It has rain, it has lakes, it has seas, it has dunes, it has mountains. But then you're reminded again, okay, as much as that's all like Earth, that rain is made of natural gas and hydrocarbons. The seas would explode if they were on Earth. So it's like, it's both similar and then totally crazy different. And that's what I love about it.
Titan's definitely
Awesome.
one of the coolest out
Yeah.
of all of them. I guess.
And we're sending a helicopter there, so that's going to be cool.
When's that happening? I know we sent a probe, but there's a helicopter?
Yeah, they're building a helicopter right now. They'll launch it at the end of the decade, and it'll get there in like 2032.
That'll be awesome.
And so it's technically a quadcopter.
Mm.
It looks like a giant drone the military built for something, but then we're going to fly it around Titan. It'll be really cool.
Awesome. I guess stacking on top of that, and would you say you believe that life exists elsewhere in the universe, maybe in the solar system or outside of it? Just a professional from your standpoint, what do you feel about that?
So I feel very confident there's other life in the universe. Because the universe is so large, the odds of it only forming here just seems so small.
For sure.
But by the same argument, I feel like the odds of us finding other life in our own solar system is not likely. And certainly advanced life, like, UFO type thing, the universe is so gigantic. Even though there's another set of humans off on the other side of the universe, there's no time to get here. So maybe we'll find bugs somewhere else in our solar system. I don't know about that. I'm more like 50-50 on that. But certainly there is life somewhere else. I just don't expect to run into it in my lifetime. Which is unfortunate because it'd be really cool. But, can't
for
learn
sure.
That kind of answers our last one. Which is...
Yeah, I'll go ahead and ask it, but final question being, you work for an advancement in technology. Do you think the discovery of life, where's everything with all the new technology?
I apologize, Dominic. That last part got cut out.
No, you're good. So basically, with current advancement in technology, do you think discovery elsewhere possible or closer?
I think if there's other microscopic organisms in our solar system, we have the ability. Well, let me be careful. I think we have the tools, like the technological equipment, to find them. I think our biggest challenge is if they are in our solar system, they are in places that are hard to get to. So, like, Europa is a moon of Jupiter. It has an ocean underneath its ice sheet. There could be life there. If there was microbes in that ocean, we have the tools to see those microbes. What we don't have, and part of it is budget, it's mostly budget and motivation and time. We don't have the skills to drill all the way down to that ocean to go look. Not in the next, say, 30 years. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is that if life is hiding somewhere, it's hiding in a difficult place to find, to get to. Um, but there's some hope. Like if there are microbes inside the moon of Enceladus, thankfully, it has an ocean underneath a big ice sheet as well, but it's also got a plume that's shooting out a geyser. So maybe if we sample that geyser, we might find life. So I mean, I think it's doable if it's there. The big question is if it's there.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Well, that's about all we've got for you. So I really appreciate it. Gave me some good insight. So
cool. Well, good luck with the class.
Yeah.
And
thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, Dominic,
Have a
you
good
all
one.
good?
Yep.
All right.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.